Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another round of sound. This is the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown in year number 25. Bob Pompeani here. I am your ringmaster as we have a lot of different discussions to get into tonight, including the Pittsburgh Steelers, offensive tackle Justin Fields. But the #1 topic tonight on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown will be the Pirates, who lost 2 of 3 to a bad Toronto team. And here to discuss is your panel. We have Jason Mackey from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, Mark Kaboly of The Athletic, Chris Mueller of the PM team on 93.7 The Fan. Chris, I want to get right into it with the Pirates. Here we are now, 59 games into this, roughly a third of the season. What are the Pittsburgh Pirates as we sit here right now at 27-32?
Pittsburgh Pirates are a team that could be a lot better than what they are, guys, because they have that most valuable commodity in Major League Baseball, it appears, starting pitching. They have a frontline ace-type guy in Skeens. You're hearing things like he's the best pitching prospect ever right now. That's how impressed people have been. Jared Jones, one hiccup start and a couple of more hittable starts aside, has still looked really good. Keller has looked great lately. Priester even looks improved. And then Bailey Falter gives them a lefty who's still throwing 96, 97. Here's the problem. They have all these nice things, guys. They have this most valuable commodity starting pitching, and they have surrounded it with very little. They have a bullpen that's faulty at multiple places. They have a lineup that still has multiple black holes in terms of run production and everything else. They're a team that's a couple of moves away, Bob, from actually being a real contender to get into this thing. And then if they get in, nobody wants to see that pitching rotation.
Which is why they should do whatever they can to get in. Jason, let's talk about that. They have 27-32. That's 5 under 500. Yet they're a game and a half out of a third wild card.
I know, and I don't sit here feeling great about what they have going on either. Pomp, I agree with a lot of what Chris said. The pitching's fantastic. The offense has been inconsistent. The fundamentals and defense have not been very good. They haven't played anywhere near to their capabilities. The bullpen, I frankly worry about it a little bit. David Bednar was better in May. Was Aroldis Chapman? No. Colin Holderman can't take the ball every time from the starting staff and get it to the closer. I don't think this team has an identity. That's a little bit worrisome to me after basically 60 games. I agree with that. But, yeah, I mean, if you get into a playoff series and you have them 1, 2, 3 and the offense is clicking, I suppose something can be, you can feel reasonably good about that. But are they going to do enough to get there?
Wow, voice of reason all of a sudden here, right? They're a below average team. I mean, there's no way else to slice it right now. They're a below average team. They can't hit the ball, can't string together hits. And you can have all you can say about the starting pitching. That's not going to do you any good if you're putting up only a handful of runs per game. And one thing that's very, very concerning to me is I don't think they're a play or two away. They have to be a more consistent team, and you just don't become a more consistent team overnight by adding a player or two. I think they're in big trouble. They're a game and a half out of a wild card, but guess what? They're a game out of last place.
All right, give me a guy that's playing replacement-level offense at first base instead of Rowdy Tellez, and I don't care that he had 4 hits today. Congratulations.
You're not sold on the Rowdy Tellez
No, you know what? Get
train?
Let's
He's going to carry this team. He's going to carry him to a playoff.
That's the sound of the Rowdy Tellez MVP Express backing into the station. No. Listen,
but he probably bought himself some time, though.
He did. What happened?
Well,
what happened?
That's exactly what that did today.
No, it was the worst. It was the worst scenario. Without them winning the game, at least, he hits a 3-run homer or something and just wins them the game. It's the worst case scenario. Now Ben Cherington says, "See, all these morons out there who said that he just stinks. They're wrong. I'm right." His his exit velocities, his hard hit, percentages have dictated he was going to come out of it. Unless Rowdy Tellez hits 500 for the rest of the month, it's still going to look terrible. But I digress here. You say they're not a player or two away. How about one bullpen arm that gets you to the Holderman-Bednar? And I know Bednar's not been great, but one arm that gets you to the 8th, 9th, and then a first baseman who hits like a first baseman instead of a little league first baseman.
They will
I'm just saying those are 2 players you could have with their pitching and actually be a contender.
Yeah, and it might not even be first base. Honestly, if Rowdy would somehow come around, I know this is a bit of an insane take, but imagine if he is okay. You have a platoon of him and Joe. You're not asking Rowdy to do too
Jason,
much.
this is Rowdy Tellez.
I know. I'm for the sake of argument, I'm asking you to go with me here. Just
you're asking a lot. I'm
asking you to go off a cliff.
I know. You're asking a lot of me.
All right.
Who am I, Thelma, and you're Louise here? What are we doing?
The bat might also be in the outfield, Chris, is what I'm saying. Michael A. Taylor has not been much better than Rowdy Tellez. I understand the defense has been a little bit better. I don't know what they're going to get out of Jack Sawinski. They need a bat some way, shape, or form. I'm just pointing out that it could also be required in the outfield. And I don't think G1 Bay is the answer out there.
No. Let me ask you this, Mark. If you are still a game and a half out as they approach the trade deadline, the Pirates have been sellers and sellers and sellers for a long time. would you buy? And if so, what would you be willing to give up to buy something that can help you get over the hump and put yourself in a wild card best, 2 out of 3? You could win 2 out of 3 with this pitching staff.
You would have to get rid of pitching because that's the only thing that would probably be valuable on the market right now. And you probably
mean pitching in their system?
You'd
young
have
guys.
to give up some sort
young
of pitching,
pitchers.
right? That's the only thing you could possibly do. And I don't think that the one player would give you enough to be able to go over the top here. My thing is we're putting a lot of pressure on guys like Skeens and Jones. Maybe they even off a little bit. Maybe this isn't a hiccup for Jones right now. So maybe the hitting starts to come around and the pitching goes south. That's just the way average teams do it.
Devil's advocate is, what if they aren't as good as a quartet of starting pitchers next year? And you miss out on an opportunity because there's a second-year regression.
I think we'll find out that in the next 3 games, or are they going to be able to play with the big boys?
Okay, if they
Next
get
6
swept
games.
by the Dodgers and it's like 2-1, 3-2 games and they're just nip and tuck games and it's just they get beat. They don't even shoot themselves in the foot. I know, again, follow me off a cliff here. Hard to believe.
That's all right.
But if they play 3 very tight, well-contested games against the Dodgers and happen to go 0-3, does that mean that they're a horrible baseball team?
No, but they put themselves in a much
that's so.
less
To answer
enviable
your
position.
question, if they're a game and a half out at the near the deadline, but they're like 5 games over 500, and suddenly the NL has turned into a track meet, I might actually want to keep pace. If you're 6 games under, but it's just such a staggering, drunken race to the finish line, then maybe I'd feel less inclined to do so.
Here's something else to think about, though, with this team right now. I mean, they expect to. Shelton said at Pirate Fest they should be able to win the NL Central. Bob Nutting has said previously they're going to contend for the
Urgency.
playoffs. I mean, you're 5 games under right now. It's 60 games in. This is not a small sample size where it's early.
Right.
They're not playing great baseball, I would argue, on the whole. I mean, they do sometimes, and then that goes away, and then something else springs a leak. It's fair to say this should be better than it is. It's just a matter of how you get there.
I just don't know who you acquire to make this team
a
legitimate
immediately.
hitting
Well,
team.
you got to go out and get somebody like with the White Sox. These teams that are out of contention.
And the
are
last
more
time
than
they
willing.
did this was
But not right now, Bob. Not
no,
right
I'm
now.
not saying that,
It's
but I'm
gonna be
saying,
2013.
are you going to worry about that, though? You're going to say Chris Archer's going to, the ghost of Chris Archer will make me never do another trade? You have assets, trade him. I would. Chris Archer.
If you're still in it,
still
if you're
paid.
still in it by that point.
What I'm saying, if you're a game and a half out,
if you're a game and a half
make
out,
a move. Show me something.
They
I
owe
think
it to their fans.
Absolutely.
To do that.
We got to take a break on that note. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Steelers. 1 more week of OTAs, mini camp, and then a little bit of a break, and then training camp. A lot of issues to resolve. We'll talk about them next, right here on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. All right, welcome back. We continue here with the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown, talking about the Steelers. I realize we're still a long way away from a game, but there are OTAs, there are discussions to be had, and Mark Kaboly, one of them is the tackle situation. Dan Moore seems to still be running ahead of Fontanu. How do you see that work? I know it's OTAs, but when this is ready to play a game in September, what are we going to see on the left and the right tackle?
I think we won't find that out until mid-August.
I'm asking you what you think.
Well, I think what I think they should do. See, people seem to misconstrue that. I'll say something, but that's what's going to happen.
Here. This is
This is my opinion.
Stick to football,
This is what they should do. They should go.
All right.
They should go with the 3 young guys. They should go with Broderick Jones, Zach Frazier, Fontanu, and just ride it out with that. Now, if Fontanu goes into training camp and you could tell, and you were able to tell that last year, at least I was able to tell early, that Broderick Jones was not quite ready yet to step in there, then you adjust after that. But if he's in there and even a shell of himself what he was in college, you just go with that, make Dan Moore one of your very valuable swing tackles and move on from that. I don't know if they'll do that or not, but that's what I'd do.
I think they're more likely to do it because this guy's experienced. He's 23. Jones was 21. Was he even 22 when they drafted him?
He was younger, right?
But it was a lack of starts for Jones. They knew the upside there. I wanted that pick. I was glad they made it. I was frustrated they didn't put him in right away, but you could at least make the argument as Mark did. But Fontanu doesn't have that concern. And how many times are we going to do the Dan Moore routine? My God, I wish he would have mouthed off and not Chooks, and then we would have all seen Broderick Jones play his real position last year. I think they're going to go, and I think they should and will do, though, 3 rookies or two rookies and 1 second-year guy on that line.
Yeah. My take on this is that Omar Khan would not say what he said about getting Broderick Jones over to left tackle and then everything happened with Troy Fontanu that it did if they didn't truly feel that way and feel it was close. I mean, that's a pretty big matzo ball hanging out there that, this is what you want. And is Dan Moore really giving them enough to entrench himself at that spot? And he can't move to right tackle. a lot of what Mark said. You want to set yourself up for years down the road. Now's the time. I don't see any point in delaying it. If one of the guys is not ready, or I guess Fautanu would be the one that's not ready, but if he's not ready, fine. But I don't see any other reason to do it.
Wait,
he's going to be ready.
You're the line guru.
Who?
You?
No,
He's the stat line.
Not me. Look at me.
No, we always hear that offensive line play is true a group of 5. They've got to play cohesively. What if your plan for the future is Fautanu at right tackle, Jones at left, Frazier at center, maybe even McCormick eventually pushing Daniels down the road? Don't you get the 3 of those guys slotted in, both tackles and a center, as fast as you can so that they can grow as a cohesive unit?
Yeah, but we're talking just about the Pirates, about the win-now mentality. Dan Moore has 50 starts under his belt.
Oh, my God. And how many of them made you want to avert your eyes? Most of them.
I don't think he's as bad as you think he is.
You're right. He's merely bad.
Okay.
Let me move on to another topic that's it seems week to week, and that would be wide receiver number 2. Mark, do they have a wide receiver number 2? If not, who will be that guy? Do they go crazy big trade Brandon Ayuk? Do they find someone else who costs less, veteran, who's out there still, after a team releases people? What do you think is going to happen?
They got a lot of number 2 wide receivers playing that number 2 spot. I wouldn't quite label him a wide receiver 2 right now because they just don't have that talent. So to say that, no.
Is the number 2 more like the way you feel about them when you're done watching them? A little stinky, not very good?
A lot of slot guys. They seem to be all in the same.
Defensive coordinators aren't going to stay up at night worrying about Quez Watkins and Van Jefferson.
So the longer this goes without a blockbuster, and I just do not think that they will want to pay the freight capital-wise and price-wise for Ayuk. Okay, so the longer this goes, maybe I'm wrong, but the longer this goes,
really prohibitive.
Price-wise, it's going to be prohibitive. I think he's not a top 5 guy. He's probably a top 8 to 12 guy in the league, but he's going to want top 5 money. How long till we just realize that they're playing here? Even though we're all conditioned to assume Omar's going to make yet another move and kind of be the anti-Colbert. It's not going to be slow and steady. It's going to be let's go, let's go, let's go. And it just turns out Pat Freiermuth is the de facto wide receiver.
That would make sense to me.
But that just feels like given all the pieces in place here, given all the pieces in place,
it shouldn't be either or, it should be both.
I'm aware of that, but I'm saying how long into this do we all get before we go, oh, wait a minute, that's what they're actually doing here?
I don't understand if you're Omar Khan trying to finagle what he has to this point. Like, it's not debatable that he's called on Samuel, Ayuk, Metcalf, Cortland Sutton, all these guys. Like, what if he would have landed one of them? They were theoretically prepared to install that person as the wide receiver 2 in this offense. So what if it happens now? Like, to me, you're admitting a weakness of your offense. We want this guy, we need this guy.
Is admitting the weakness saying you're also not prepared to go into the season with that weakness? Because I think that there's a certain level of, we'll do this if we have to do it this way, but we would like to improve it. Isn't that how most teams feel about something on their roster,
you're
Mark?
really asking a lot of the Quez Watkinses and Van Jefferson.
You're asking Roman Wilson. You're asking Roman Wilson to be very good. You're asking him, even though he's a slot guy, to be very good very quickly.
Yeah.
What's your take on Freiermuth being the beneficiary of all this?
Oh, I think he will. I think he will take it to that next level. How much he really puts up numbers-wise. But once again, are you going to have coverage rolling to Freiermuth and whoever's in that slot if it's Roman Wilson? You're having some damage on the other side here with George Pickens, man. They're just going to double him, take him out of the game. He's not going to be happy, and it has a trickle-down effect. That's what I worry about right now. I'm not more worried about what the number games is. I'm worried about the guy over here who's your number one, not getting the ball.
What about if you're the dog that catches the car and you get Ayuk and then he's clearly your number one? Then do we have the same trickle down for George Pickens?
As long as George gets the ball, he's fine.
Lot to ask there.
George is getting frustrated.
What it would take to get him in a trade. But San Francisco is dangling those guys out there still. We'll find out what happens in the weeks ahead. When we come back, we're going to talk about Caitlin Clark. Yep, she's having an impact in a lot of different ways. We'll get into that next. There's no doubt that Caitlin Clark has done a lot for the WNBA. Women's basketball sellouts all the time. There was another one last night. And the Indiana Fever lost to the Chicago Sky. But in that game, Kennedy Carter, who is a member of the Sky, came in and gave a cheap shot to Caitlin Clark. Clark knocked her down. And that's fine. I mean, you're a young player in the game. You're going to get tested. But Jason Mackey, I want to ask you about what happened in the post-game interview where she decided, I'm not talking about Caitlin Clark. I'm not taking any Caitlin Clark questions. Why?
Yeah, I don't have a magic answer. I didn't like that. I didn't have any problem with the play, Bob. Like you said, you're a rookie in the league. I don't care what league you are, what league it is, what kind of player you are, or whatever. I mean, that's going to happen. But to just say, like, I'm not taking questions, my suspicion, and obviously I don't know this based on much, but I mean, it almost struck me as we're tired of talking about Caitlin Clark. We're tired of having
that's what it sounded
this
like.
being all about Caitlin Clark. Like, this is just a play against a normal player, and quit asking me about this marquee player. And if that's the case, it's probably going to get old real fast because it seems to be a lot made of Caitlin.
You're asking the wrong people here. You're asking like 3 reporters here whether or not a player should talk to us. Of course we're going to side on that other side, right?
She did it. So what do you think? You're not going to be asked about it?
Yeah, I understand.
You can answer a lot of different ways.
I do believe she thought she got elbowed earlier, whatever, however it went down. But I think there's a little jealousy there. Maybe not jealousy more than this is a woman that's played, 10 games? And she's
struggling a little bit too,
Well,
as
she's
you would
struggling,
expect.
only playing 10 games, and it's the face of the league. And these veterans, grizzled veterans, are probably saying, whoa, what's going on? They got to realize that she benefits the entire league.
Well, just point of order, and it might be Occam's razor here. The Sky lost the game, so they might have been ticked that they're getting asked about it after a game that they lost because it was the first home win for the Fever all year. I was watching the last couple minutes. They were glued to Caitlin Clark and not letting her do anything. But I believe, guys, it was Socrates who famously said there's no such thing as bad publicity. I like this for the WNBA, and if I'm the league, I might be like a little bit annoyed that
the players, I bet you were over it.
But they shouldn't be. They're starting to fly charter. They're all going to make a lot more money because of her, because the media rights deal is up. And they've got if they're mad that her play hasn't yet matched her hype, she's the rising tide lifting all the boats. I'm watching WNBA games. I didn't before. I'm into it.
Exactly.
And you know
Sell-out
what?
crowds after sell-out
And you know
crowds.
what? Instead of people making dumb jokes that we've heard a million times before, why don't they dunk? Why don't they lower the rims? We're talking about like a heated exchange after a game and physicality. And by the way, Clark was chirping at her the whole way up the court. They've seen videos. She's running her mouth.
Chirping's one thing.
But I like that. Isn't this
Right,
what we all
that's-
care about in sports when everyone doesn't
I
like
wish
each
they
other?
talked about it. I mean, slam
That's what
her.
I'm
That'd be
saying.
great.
Like, this is a net good for the WNBA because we are having a serious WNBA conversation. When was the last time we did that on this show?
Exactly. And that's the whole thing.
And I'm
It's
into it
about-
because I'm fired up because I give a crap. That's what the league wants, and that's what the league is getting, and Caitlin Clark is ultimately the main reason they're getting it.
So what would Confucius say?
Well, I was going to go Confucius, but I use Confucius every single time. I had to go Socrates. I thought about Aristotle, but that's Shaq.
Confucius says we're due for a break. I know that because I'm here right now. We got to take it. When we come back, we'll continue talking about the Negro Leagues, and all their numbers are going to be included in the MLB numbers game. We'll talk about it next. We've been doing this show for a long time, 25 years now, and you've seen a lot of great things. June 6, 2014, Jim Rutherford named Penguins Executive Vice President and General Manager, and a couple of years later, back-to-back Stanley Cup championships. We're talking about something that changed this week. MLB record book will include Negro League stats, and that means people like Josh Gibson are going to be right at the top of it. Jason, good or bad? A lot of people think, why? They're different leagues, but at the same time, it's correcting a problem that existed for many years.
Yeah, I mean, it's different leagues because, one, people in the Negro Leagues were not allowed to play in Major League Baseball. I don't have any problem with it. I understand some people do. I understand some people think, this is a slippery slope, and when does it stop, and why don't we just put every stat possibly in the record book? But, I mean, these are widely acknowledged as some of the best players in baseball history. Why would I not want Satchel Paige, Josh Gibson, others recognized along with their contemporaries? They should have been recognized that way back then. They should be recognized that way now. I understand it sort of opens a door, but my argument is typically that all of these stats, Bob, have to be looked at with some measure of context. We don't look at baseball in 1897 the same way as we do baseball now. I mean, you evaluate it for the era. Use some context with it. It's not perfect, I understand.
Well, speak for yourself. I don't think Ed Delahanty could have hacked it in this day and age. So do we think Ty Cobb, now that he's not the batting average leader, is going spikes up in an afterlife pickup game on the Sandlot?
He's probably going spikes up before.
Yeah,
Well, they didn't invite him into Field of Dreams, right?
That's true. Yeah. No, I think so. The separate leagues arguments where I wanted to go. This is obviously, I think, a good thing. The American League and National League. What were they until they were separate leagues, right? Until 1990, 99. They had separate rules. They had separate umpires. They had all of that stuff that was separate. They were all separate professional leagues, as were the Negro Leagues. And as Jason said, you have to even look at Babe Ruth's records. If he was playing in an integrated major league, what would his numbers have been? Would they have been a little bit worse because the talent pool would have been better? I have no problem with this. Josh Gibson's now the career batting average leader. Fine. doesn't change my feeling on any of this one bit. It's a good thing.
Mark?
Yeah, I don't think it changes at all. I mean, when was the last time you looked at the Major League record book?
Right.
Yesterday. I mean, I do it every day.
You memorize it?
The physical copy of the book, too.
It's very big. It's larger every year. I have to hold
For
it.
people, and especially people in this area with,
It's a stat-oriented sport, though. It's a stat-oriented sport. No sport venerates its numbers like baseball.
People in this area knows the Crawfords, know the Homestead Gray, so we know Josh Gibson. We know those. We don't have to look in the
We know that he hit.
book.
Yeah, he was prodigious.
So we knew he was good. So if nobody looks at the record book. To me, whatever. I mean, I really don't have much of a say on either.
They're not.
side of
No
it,
one as good as Kaboly in Little League in the Mon Valley, though. Those records will never be topped.
If those records start going
Those
away,
records fall,
boy.
then we got to check these kids for PEDs.
No, I
speak the
think
truth.
it's a good thing, too. And you can make your own judgment based on the numbers you see, but they're all going to be there for you to see. And speaking about numbers, when your number is number 1, and that's in your name, you always have to bring your A game. That's exactly what number 1 Cochran does every single day. With 2 convenient locations in Monroeville and Butler County, more than 200 new models in stock, and all-star offers for every budget and lifestyle. Drive home a winner when you visit number 1 Cochran Subaru, or shop online at CochranSubaru.com, CochranSubaruButler.com. We'll be right back. All right, as always, it's been fun. We are done. Thanks for joining us tonight. We'll do it again next week after OTAs are done. We'll have conclusions, I believe, at least heading into minicamp. That's going to do it for us. Thanks to Chris Mueller, Mark Kaboly, Jason Mackey. We'll see you again next Sunday night, 11:35.